So we've been talking about getting your mind right, but today we also want to talk about getting your heart right, emotional access of the therapist.
Welcome to the Leading Edge in Emotionally Focused Therapy with your hosts, Dr. James Hawkins and Dr. Ryan Rana. EFT is a dynamic model that humbles even the most seasoned therapists. Together, we want to come alongside you as you continually push the leading edge of your understanding and application of this wonderful model developed by Dr. Sue Johnson.
So once again, glad to be back with you all. I know we've been somewhat sporadic as Ryan and I have been traveling, family, holidays, all the good things. And we just hope, it's been a good time for you and that you've been pushing your leading edge and helping your clients push their leading edge. But today's topic, we've been talking a lot about kind of like some of the clinical framework and understanding. But Ryan, this one was like, it was really burning on Ryan's mind, like the emotional access of the therapist.
Yeah. First, I just want to say I've been learning a lot of EFT in the last month. And I just left an intern meeting where someone kind of said, "Hey, Ryan, I think you're starting to get good at EFT." You were there, weren't you?
Yeah.
He was like being facetious. And I'm like, no, actually, that's right. I think this is a lifelong process that nobody ever gets fully.
Yep.
And so I'm learning. And so thank you for staying with the learning because EFT is like one of those dolls that keeps expanding and you think you got it 100 times and then you realize there's more to get.
That's right.
And that can be exciting. So thank you for that. And yeah, I think this is important, because again, our nervous system gets ready for all the reactivity and defensiveness. And I think that's important. I think it's not a good idea to walk in an office and let reactivity surprise you. And yet we can overdo that because what are you going to do when your clients really drop into vulnerability? And is your nervous system ready for that kind of drop? And what do you have to do before session to be ready for that?
Yeah, I like that, Ryan. Thank you for that. And so even the story that sticks out to me for this, that helped me, Catherine was one of my mentors when I was doing my trainer and training process. And she taught me a lesson I'll never forget, and it's not even just about EFT. It's like it's transferred into my personal life. And so she, James, do you know the cycle of the couple coming in tomorrow? Like, yeah, I do. She's like, tell it to me. And I told it to her in a very just kind of matter-of-factual way. And she's like, how does that make you feel when you think about and you look at what that couple's going through? And I was like, it breaks my heart for them. And she's like, good. Now I want you to recite it back to me. Recite their cycle back to me with that emotion loaded in you. Convey the cycle to me like it actually breaks your heart. And when she did it, and when I did it for her, I felt it differently. And she's like, I would just want you to start the session. When you give the reflection to them, give it to them that way. And I did. And I'm not going to say it goes this way for everybody all the time, but it hit the withdrawer. It made the withdrawer start crying at the beginning of session.
Nice work.
And I was like, whoa. And I had to ask. I'm like, hey, we were 5 minutes in. I'm like, hey, can I just check? What's that tear coming up for you? And the withdrawer said, it's one thing for me to live it, but when you showed it back to me, I got to see and feel the experience I'm living in. And so all of that, you say, well, what's the big takeaway? Is it just about giving the cycle with emotion? No. What was really important about that, you all, and I hope you hear, and I think this is where Ryan's going, it helped access me. It brought me into that emotional resonance zone, or even some ways, I kind of embodied their experience, and my vulnerability kind of pulled in their vulnerability as well. So, yeah, that's my story on that one.
Yeah. Good job. I think there's a reason that is so powerful. And I didn't understand this about them. I had been a therapist for 15, 18 years without really understanding this, that emotion is inherently a relational event. Like every emotion that comes out of our body, out of our vagus nerve or limbic system, is actually designed to be caught by someone else. I just didn't get that. And even if you're alone on a mountain and you have an emotion, that emotion is sort of looking through the mirror neuron pathways to go, who else is seeing this beauty that I'm seeing? So we take pictures.
That's right.
Right, and pictures never do it justice. Because it's the experience that's so special. But you want someone else to experience what you're experiencing. And therefore, emotion is not really delivered. until it's responded to by other. So I love what Catherine Ream was doing there, and how you used yourself, and that's when it activated that person's body. Because if you have to boil EFT down, it's use of self. It's these leading edge, hyper sort of tender, vulnerable moments where your tenderness touches their tenderness is really where change happens. Yeah. So much so, some people are like, let's just focus on that. Well, it's not always that simple, because people are stuck in a systemic dance as well. So there is a place for the structures and the tactics, but if that ever gets in the way of these moments, we've lost the whole point.
That's right. So I want to go back and make sure we set a clear focus even here. So we've been in this Get Your Mind Right series, and we're adding a little ad lib here of but also get your heart right. So as we're thinking about this, the emotional access of the therapist before they go into session. So I'm trying to picture the therapist. Maybe they've kind of gotten their office ready. They fluffed the pillows. They got the tissue boxes ready, and they start walking out to the lobby to get their client. And we're trying to come alongside them in this podcast and talk to that therapist who's taking that journey to get the client about getting emotional access. And even what do we mean? Maybe you just said it. Forgive me, Ryan. Like when you think about what does the emotional access of the therapist mean to you?
I like that image you just gave. I think that's excellent. I do set my office up a little bit different for a couple. I move a table around so that I have a drink and that it doesn't interfere. A small table, and I put my chair in a different spot, and that's telling my body, all right, get ready. Really for both, potentially lots of interrupting and reactivity, and to go there. And I like, speaking of Catherine Ream, she talks about, she was at a trauma training one time, and she said one of her routines, and the context was trauma, but I think it can apply also to this conversation is, when she has a couple, when she has someone with a lot of trauma, she literally stops and shuts her door and sits down and leans back and closes her eyes and takes 3 or 4 big deep breaths and says to herself, this person's going to need extra grace today. I think that's not a bad thing to do before every session, to kind of center yourself, kind of accessing that part of you, that meditative, prayerful state, spiritual state, whatever is your worldview. I think that's really key, because you can't just go from organizing gear into that deepest place instantly most of the time. Like you kind of want to get that part of you primed, kind of warmed up already, because the thing for me is, I don't ever want the reason that my client doesn't go as deep as they can to be me. That's not acceptable. That's not one I can walk away from and be okay. I can make mistakes. I will make mistakes. I have and will again. That just can't be one of them. And so my discomfort with talking about horrible things and hard things and sad things can't be an exit. I can't prevent the client from doing what their body needs that day. So I've got to do my work, and this is like another episode, but even in my personal life, enough to be congruent, but also, having some kind of process where I'm making space for that in my nervous system before I step into that situation. I think it's a good idea.
Man, thank you, Ryan. That's a great image from the Catherine part, and even just putting that challenge of, for us to evaluate what is my emotional access today, because sometimes we could focus on the client so much, but then we forget about, what about my well? Do I have the ability? Yep. Do I have space within me? Do I have tolerance within me? Can I sit in those moments? I've been reading this book, and I'm not trying to endorse the whole book. I haven't read it all the way, but it's called Deep Work. And the concept, he's talking about this ability to sit in moments and concentrate and focus is an art, and it's a skill that's going to be so valuable. And I just got to say it, if you're an EFT therapist and you're listening to this, or any kind of experiential therapist that says, I'm willing to join people in the bottom-up process, do you have the ability to kind of find the way to find that space to sit with people in hard moments and times? Or I remember George, when he would train us, he would challenge us in externship. What's your range of tolerance as a therapist? How much range do you have? If you have a very small range, it's going to be hard for you with your couples. You got to have that range to go into the deep depths with people and to go up towards people when they're in their escalated anger.
And that there are very few of us, maybe none of us, that just have that walking off the street.
Yep, that's right.
I just think cultures and families and trauma and pain and teach you to suppress that,
That's
you
right.
know, and then it's habitual. It's not even a choice anymore. So
right.
to me, every podcast you listen to, every SV episode or EFT Cafe or whatever core skills, you know, every time you facilitate, one of your goals should be, I want to continue to increase my tolerance window. I want to get up there and be able to match anger and protest. I want to get all the way down there with my risk voice to grieve really well. That should be something that is a project that we're working on all the time.
And which is why in the beginning of this podcast, one of my favorite lines that my wife Nicola says, it's EFT is a dynamic model that humbles even the most seasoned. And this is the part of EFT. Sue did a great job, her and the team, building a map. But the thing that we've always got to work on, the map is already tried and true, and it's proven in its research. But you're the tool that's still always being developed and stretched, and you're learning and you're growing. And even when you think you've got it, sooner or later, there's that client or the relationship that comes around that just like, ooh, I got to develop another gear again.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah, well said. And I like that Nicola says that too. And I know we got to go to a break, but really quickly, I think this gets into self-therapist stuff, and that's not our topic today, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
You know, I've been doing this for about 25, 26 years. And so my personal relationship has been everywhere over 2.5 decades. And I think there's opportunities in both sides. There's also challenges in both sides. So, you know, if at times where my personal relationship is going well, and we're clicking on all cylinders, then it's easy to access that hope, you know, and like, okay, this can work. It's also that can make it hard to have empathy sometimes, right? And then the converse is true. If my relationship, which it has been hundreds of times, is in a complete ditch, and the cycle's kicked our butt, and we're not even talking, and then you feel all this hypocrisy of walking in to work with 9 couples that week when you suck. You know,
Yes.
The negative is that hypocritical feeling that you feel. That's bad. But there's an opportunity there too, because that is really a place that you can have a lot of empathy. In fact, some of my best sessions come when I'm doing terribly in my personal relationship because I have extra patience. I'm like, dude, I get it. Sometimes this sucks. So there really is opportunity both sides. And I think it's important that we're doing the work to harness the good juice out of both those situations.
Man, that's good. All right, let's take a quick break here. Do you like the content that you're hearing on this podcast? Well, we invite you to join us on successandvulnerability.com along with George Fowler and other EFT therapists and supervisors, where you get to get more thorough insight into these concepts and actually get to see it done. Once again, join us on successandvulnerability.com. Yeah, and just as another announcement, we don't always talk about the different trainings and things we got coming up, but this one really matters to us, not just because it's kind of named after this podcast, but we will be, now if you're listening to this later, on April 2025, I'm going to say 8th through the 11th, Ryan and I will be leading a training with the Minnesota EFT Center on April 8th. And that evening, Ryan's going to kick it off, and he's going to do a supervisor training. Whether you're a brand new supervisor, you're thinking about being a supervisor, you're a seasoned supervisor, or maybe you're just in supervision yourself and you want to learn more about the process and how to do that and how to be a part of that, how to get the most out of the supervision process. Ryan's going to be leading a 4-hour training that does come with 4 CEUs for your as being a supervisor, one of those being an ethics CEU. So anyway, he'll do that. And then April 9th through the 11th, he and I will co-lead a retreat that's going to be really a lot focused on working with reactivity in the EFT process. A lot of the nuanced stuff you hear us talk about on here in SV, except we're going to be building the dynamic training out with the people who are there in the group. And then each evening, as a part of your registration, this is crazy to me. They're doing such a great job.
They are.
they're going to have activities to help also build the bond and just help therapists have some time to help be with each other. We're going to play whirly ball, bowling, pizza nights, game nights, taco bars. And by the way, it's also positioned near the Mall of America. So there'll be some shopping happening as well. So if you want to be a part of that, April 8th through the 11th, if you just don't want to do the supervisor part, you don't have to. You can just come to the retreat part, and that'll be April 9th through the 11th. The Leading Edge Retreat, you can sign up at mnceeft.com, or you just look up Minnesota EFT, and you can be able to sign up for that there. We hope to see you there. All right. So back into this episode, Ryan. Can I tell another story?
Yeah.
Do you have another story that hits me when I think about emotional access? It's one of those, we got the stories we got to hear at Sue's Memorial. You've heard us say it on here, but it still touched me even with this episode. And emotional access is not just also for those low, vulnerable moments.
Yeah.
But it's even when they're frustrating you. When Sue would say, when you get frustrated with your clients, empathize, empathize, empathize. And I remember being with one community, and I was working with the pursuer, and the community was a little bit thrown off by the pursuer's energy and just how much space they kept trying to take up with their words and their energy. But then what broke my heart, I said, but can we also take time and understand that the pursuer's words are trying to fight for their partner? Their partner has struggled with depression and had suicidal thoughts, and the pursuer's energy is trying to keep them alive. And normally that might throw me off, but that day I was in a good spot, and it just, like, as I saw their energy, I had this well of empathy that just stayed with them, validated and organized. So even for you as a therapist going into your session, even if it's a rough one, can you find it in you? Do you have access to find empathy for even the hard things that are coming out from your partner? And it takes me back to another conversation with like Sue and Leanne, where they say when they see that reactivity, it's just fear and pain that has not been responded to. Go get the fear and the pain. But that also requires you to have access to you to recognize and feel the fear and the pain in the room, and then to be able to make and bring it out of the darkness into the light so we can work with it. I don't know. That's what sticks out to me here as well.
I like it. That's good. And you gave me you're going to change my metaphor there.
Ooh.
I was going to say we already do this. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what we're trying to do is to get people to make sure they're transferring
That's right.
something they already do to getting our mind right, getting our heart right before session. So I was going to think about, and I'll sidebar here. I was thinking about, if you're on the way to the emergency room, there's some kind of tragedy and someone that you care about's lost someone. Like there's an inner dialogue that you go through as you're driving, as you walk into the hospital. Like you're getting your body ready to go slow. You're getting ready to go low. I don't know what you call that, pre-grieving or something. But it's just something we're all going to do, or to a funeral home, a visitation. We do in the South at least. But I was thinking about Sue's funeral service as you say that. Yeah. And that was was it April?
May.
Was it May?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I remember, without going into too long of a story, it was a horrible time for me. It's the most selfish thing I've ever said. It just wasn't a great time to be on the road again. I was in between trips. I'm like, can I make it? It's a hard place to get to. Beautiful, but hard. And my wife's like, you got to go. So I'm just like, all right, I'm just going. I'm just going to go unpack one suitcase and do another one. And so, you're kind of flying there. I remember what I was wearing, walking to, because the service was in a really beautiful room at a hotel, and there's lots of people around. But the whole time I'm like trying to get myself ready mentally, emotionally for what we're about to see here. I know we're going to see a film of her life, and we're going to hear some stories that are going to pull at your heartstrings. And John, her husband's there, and her children, Ryan and stepdaughter, and and then Leanne and others who have known her a lot longer than me. I'm sitting behind John Gottman at the funeral. So even just that memory is what we're asking of you, to like get yourself, to have that gear available in your office so that if and when it gets there, that you can go as deep or deeper than your clients need to. It's easier said than done. It sounds like, duh, I'm an EFTer. Of course I'm going to work with emotion. Like, yeah, well, but you might have 7 sessions that day, and you might be in session 6 and you're tired.
Yeah.
Or your last 2 sessions may have not gone well or gone too well. And I'm kind of spun out, and I just don't have it ready. And our clients deserve the very best to take a moment and to have that gear available to you. So that's what we're meaning by get our heart right. And for me, my last 3 trainings, 2 for sure, it's really interesting. A phrase has come out from the participants that I've never used before. And that was kind of unintentional, but I'm glad. I'm like, okay, then that's giving me good feedback that what I'm doing is getting close to target. And so when I'm teaching the way we think about affect assembly or tempo, and then I talk about, the process of rave or raves, and then I'm demonstrating that and having them role play or do exercises with that. That's what I like to think of whenever I'm in a training a new person. As soon as they can really grab the role play or the exercise where they do a temp rave blend, which is affect assembly with a full response from the therapist, that's when it starts to look like EFT, which sometimes is externship, oftentimes it's core skills. That's okay. But anyway, from the teaching, from the demonstration, from the role play, someone's raised their hand in both trainings and says, oh, so I didn't get this. I've been doing EFT for years. I didn't know you meant we need to do a full body reflection. I'm like, that's a really good phrase. So an affect assembly, that everything said of attachment significant, it hits your body. Oh. And you do a full reflection, an embodied full reflection that you send back to them. Now you're doing EFT.
Whoa.
And that takes a lot of energy, and that takes a lot of effort. That takes some preparation too.
Wow. Well, Ryan, thank you. That's a great story of even like how you used you traveling to Sue's service. Mm-hmm. In a way, that is what we're doing. As I walk down the hall, I'm trying to take it on now. Like, this is a good exercise. Like, as I walk, am I thinking about what I'm about to walk into with this couple, picturing them, picturing the relationship, picturing their kids, that I know about, the pets or whatever, in the communities they're a part of, picturing that and preparing my body. It's like almost getting my body almost into the emotional zone, even before I go out to the lobby and say, hey, you ready to come back? I like that.
Yeah. Because you are.
Yeah.
You understand? I mean, me without intending to necessarily, getting on the plane in Arkansas and sort of walking steps emotionally, getting myself ready to be in that service.
That's good.
That's what we're doing, because when you go into people's deepest hurt place, it is a form of death. It's a funeral. This is the place. This is it right here. Oof. I felt it when you said that. Like those kind of moments is when EFT really, it's a change event. And so you are entering a darkness, a place of defeat and hopelessness. There's a funeral aspect to that. And, there's preparation that most of us need to be ready to go do that.
Wow. This is good, Ryan. I don't know if you got anything else, but I like this episode as a way of just something to listen to say like, hey, how am I doing to get my heart there? Our clients, we can hope for them that maybe they could try and see this, that we can hope that they'll try and make space. And it's not even blaming them. The negative cycle doesn't afford them that opportunity. And sometimes what could feel like a luxury, the negative cycle says, don't go there, don't do this. It keeps them out of it a lot, or it goes so fast. Like even a couple said this yesterday, and the one of the partners was like, whoa, you really slow this thing down and make us see it differently. And I have to, because the negative cycle doesn't end. The thing that you said with that thing, if I'm going to say my EFT cutting edge place maybe, is as I'm doing the session, I keep trying to build that image out and like feel it come alive in me. And I don't start trying to like go on these big missions until I feel it. I like when you used to say like, I don't move until I get a good, clear metaphor. Because when I have a clear metaphor, that means I'm attuned. I can feel it. Anyway. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I think one more thing was Sue, and no one else says this. So I'm like, did I just dream this? But I know I didn't. She used to open externships, or some of them at least. Like her first time out, people were still giving her applause and, good morning, it's great to be here. And then she would say, I'm about to some phrase. I don't have her exact, the first part of what she said, I don't have the phrase right, but I know I do the second part.
Okay.
Some version of, I'm about to introduce you to the most researched couples therapy model in the world, or something like one of the most sophisticated ways of thinking about helping couples in the world. But don't forget, this is all about responsiveness. So she would start her externship with that word.
Responsiveness.
And it's really brilliant because, again, what happens in our sessions becomes contagious. So the way I respond models for the partner how to respond, models for the person how to respond to self, models for person A to respond to person B, models for person B to respond to person A. And it all starts with our responsiveness. And so it's so big. And so we need to have, and my wording here may not be perfect, but we need to have a dramatic response when people tell us about their pain.
Yep.
Let me say that again. And I don't know that dramatic is a great word, but we need to have a dramatic response when people tell us about their pain.
That's right.
I have participants sometimes ask a question, and I appreciate the question, but there's a challenge that comes behind it. And they'll be like, are you asking us to act?
No.
To be actors? Well, if that is your response, that is your body saying, I didn't have my heart right. I didn't have my mind right. Something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
When someone tells you about deep pain that they've been sitting with for 6.8 or more years, that should move you.
That's right.
If it doesn't move you, something's wrong with me. And I don't mean that like shame. It's just more like I wasn't in the right gear. I wasn't in the right channel. Or maybe I've just heard one too many stories today or through my career.
Yeah.
But again, our couples deserve a therapist who can hit that reset button and be impressed the next time someone says that they're sad.
That's right. Because this is emotionally focused therapy, and what's how I keep defining emotion based on me, you, and George's definition. It's their body's way trying to get their attention so they can put out a signal so someone can give them an attuned, comforting response.
Yeah.
So if they're putting out a signal and I give no response, I've just kind of defied the process of emotion.
Yeah.
So that's why this episode is important, y'all. That we want to make sure that part of you getting yourself ready for the session is am I ready to receive the signals that they're going to send, even if they don't realize they're sending them clearly.
Yeah.
But I have an ability that I can let those emotions access me and George has been talking about this, and I've talked about it for a while, access the caregiver of the therapist.
Caregiving system.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if we can't do that, then that's okay.
Yeah.
And I know we need to end this episode, but Ryan said something at our staff meeting a couple years ago at the beginning of COVID that stuck with me. It's not so much about if you burn out, it's when you burn out, will you notice and what will you do about it? And so we just want to give this also with some empathy. This is a time of the year for you as therapists. Burnout could be so easy. With the sun changing and seasonal affective disorder, your clients have been going through chaos just because of some family of origin stuff. Grief stuff gets awakened around this time of the year. I know I keep talking. We usually don't put dates on it, but we are around the holiday season. So if you can't access that part of you, we're not trying to shame you, but we are trying to say you need to recognize if you've lost that, and then we need to do something about it to help resource you and help you. And by the way, you're not a bad therapist if that happens. It happens to all of us.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I think I told the story last week. I had to Ryan has works with me. I had to it was the last two clients of the day around. I had to say, James, you don't have it, and you know what's coming in. You don't have it.
Yeah.
The best decision you can make for those clients is to cancel today.
Okay.
And I did. And I said, I'm sorry, y'all, but I just don't got it.
Okay.
I just don't have it today.
Yeah.
We can pick up next week.
All right. And it's a great that's a great reason to work in a group practice.
Yep.
I know a lot of folks are sitting by themselves post-COVID, and that's okay too. Mm-hmm. You know, the good resources are good resources. That's a great time to not be alone in that space.
That's right.
If I realize, man, my heart's hard, my empathy muscle's stuck, sometimes it's to cancel, sometimes it's to say, hey, you got a minute.
Yep.
And, if I can have a dialogue with you and we can click there, sometimes I can just re-access that part of me. You have that part of you. Mm-hmm. Everybody does. Mm-hmm. It's a mammalian human thing. It's just a matter of, can I get it open?
That's right.
Last thing for me, speaking of George, he and I were working out of Connecticut years ago online. And as is typical, he and I are both always changing the training in the middle of the training, which frustrates everybody, but it's part of what makes it fresh. I never do the same training twice, exactly. So we've got people in some breakout, and he's like, hey, write up a role play. Right. And so we did, and we started calling it the wash over.
I remember that.
Remember that?
I was there with you.
Okay. Yes, I'm typing as fast as I can, so typos everywhere. But the wash over you role play was asking people to go practice deepening. And the most common thing I hear with EFT trainings is with new people is like, yeah, I already do that. And I'm like, yeah, maybe not. And so, but this is one of the times when they're like, oh, I don't do that. Because it assigns you to go find a primary emotion and to go sit in silence for 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then to practice just letting that word and that sensation wash through your body multiple times. And then demonstrate them back. Let them see their emotion in your body. And that's what this episode's all about. And that's not something you can do by accident. There's an intentionality and a preparation for that. So we want you to get your heart right.
Thank you for listening. We hope this experience helps you push the leading edge in your work to help people connect with themselves and with each other. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a 5-star review. You can contact us at pushtheleadingedge@gmail.com, and you can follow us on our Facebook page at Push the Leading Edge. You can follow Ryan on Facebook at Ryan Rana Professional Training and on his website, ryanranatraining.com. You can follow James on Facebook and Instagram at DocHawkLPC. You can also check out his website, DocHawkLPC.com.